everyone, I welcome you all to this CEC UGC online lecture series. I'm Nupur Chawla, teaching English literature at Maitri College, Delhi University. And today we are going to talk about, in fact I should say that we are going to carry on our discussion about H.G. Wells' novel The Time Machine. Now this is a novel which was written in the 19th century, late 19th century, and we are going to look at this text from the different critical perspectives. In the last lecture, we looked at the background of the author and the genre that he is associated with. But now in this lecture, we are going to talk about the plot overview and also establish a kind of a critical framework that will help us appreciate this text. So the first thing that we say, which I briefly mentioned in the last lecture also, was about the beginning of the novel. That how the novel begins with a number of characters sitting together having a conversation about the dimensions. And dimensions, it means that what all dimensions does this world exist in? So according to them, there are 3 dimensions. But there is a 4th dimension as well, which is the dimension of time. Right? So what they are discussing then is that how as human beings we are able to travel vertically in the dimensions, right? We all go forward, backward, we go left and right, but the upward and downward movement in the dimensions is kind of restricted by the gravitational force. So this discussion then is kind of compared to the idea of time, that how time being the 4th dimension, then human beings are also capable of traveling in time. Okay. Now this idea might come across as somewhat novel to us, but or somewhat new to us. But the point that is being established is that how the way human beings travel in different directions in these dimensions, even in the 4th dimension, which is time, human beings are capable of going forward and backward in time. Now this, friends, this discussion then sets the ground for this novel being the one of science fiction. Talking about dimensions, talking about length, breadth and height, talking about time, clearly establishes the basis of this novel, that is science fiction. And the second very important thing which is established in the beginning is the fact that how time travel is going to be a very important part of this text. And we must not forget that time travel is actually a subgenre of science fiction. And H.G. Wells is known to have pioneered it. So H.G. Wells is the person who kind of popularized this style of writing of the time travel, where we see the character travel across time. Okay, that's about the beginning of the novel. The second thing that we also need to know about the plot is that it is a frame narrative. Now, what do we mean by a frame narrative? We mean that there is a larger story, and within that there is another story which is going on. So what is this larger story? This larger story is what the novel begins with. That is, where we have 5-6 people sitting together discussing, having a communication. And within this is we can say another story that is presented by this nameless time traveler. So we have these 2 stories then running simultaneously. On the outside is the story of these people who are sitting together, communicating and listening to the time traveler. The second parallel story which runs in this novel is the story which is told by the nameless time traveler. Now, what is the story that he is telling us? He is telling us about his travels into the future. Okay, so this time traveler is a person who has invented a time machine. Okay, he is a person associated with science, and he has created this machine in the laboratory, and he tells everybody about that, and he says that how one day he actually he himself sat on that time machine. He wound up one of the levers, and what happened that he was transported into the future. Okay, now the entire novel then comprises this nameless time traveler telling his friends about his experiences in the world of that future. Now this is what comprises our major plot. Okay, the next thing then that we must talk about while talking about the plot is, what are these experiences like? He goes into the world which is number of years further ahead from the present moment. Okay, now what is the common sense expectation? Whenever we talk about future, we think of advancement, we think of progress, we think of development, we think of how man would have made a lot of progress in different fields. But the world that this time traveler talks about, even as it is situated in the future, yet at the same time this world has regressed, right? Is it not interesting? Now let us see that how has this world regressed. If you notice in the novel, this very clear mention occurs where the time traveler says, I saw humanity on the wane. Now what do we mean by wane? Wane means going backwards in time, where humanity was regressing. So even though he was in the future, yet what he experienced was that how humanity was in the wane. Okay. Another very important reference in the novel will help us understand that what does this mean. He says, and I quote, humanity had been strong, energetic, intelligent, and had used all its abundant vitality to alter the conditions under which it lived. And now came the reaction of the altered conditions. Now what is happening over here, friends? What he is pointing towards is the fact that this future world that he had traveled to definitely had advancements. He sees buildings around him, he sees these skyscrapers, there's a lot of newness, there's a lot of technology. But what he says is, despite all that progress, there was something which seemed to have taken that world backward in time. And what was that thing which had taken them backward in time? Is that after achieving so much, there seemed to have come some kind of a stasis. Okay, they seemed to have reached a stage where there was no further movement, and the kind of reality that had existed in that world of future had a lot of problems. Okay, now what is the author then trying to tell us over here? He is trying to make us imagine, make us envision what happens when there is a lot of development, or when there is development for the sake of development. When that happens, a lot of things do take a back seat, right? And what takes a back seat? That once there is so much of development, once man has exhausted his energy in all these development activities, there is some kind of a regression that is noticed in the civilization. And this is exactly what this time traveler also notices in this future world that he travels to. And therefore he says that I saw humanity on the wane. Waning means that it was regressing, it was going backwards. So if we look at it in material terms there was advancement, but where was this backwardness then? How did humanity seem to be waning is something that we will come to know when we talk about this next important thing which the time traveler tells us. Now, how was humanity waning? He sees that in the future world there are these two races, the Eloys and the Morlocks. So these two races of people he comes across in that future world. Now, who are they? Now, Eloys were, these people who were living overground, and they were dependent completely upon the other subterranean race, which were referred to as the Morlocks. Okay, now if we look at the description of this a group of people in the novel, now the Eloys were these very tiny creatures. They appeared to be of course humans, but they were very delicate. They were dressed in all fineries. There was a lot of luxury that was associated with them. They were living in palaces, right? So there was a lot of comfort, a lot of luxury associated with this set of people that he comes across. But what he tells us is that even as these people were comfortable, they were living in luxury, there was absolutely no struggle. But these people were not intelligent. They were intellectually slow, right? So there was something about them which was not right. So they were very, very casual. They were intellectually not as adept. Okay, so this is the observation that our time traveler has about Eloys. Now, another question that comes to the mind of our time traveler when he's talking about this future world, he wonders that I see all these palaces in the world around me, but then who created these palaces? Where is the work being done? Who are those people who built this palace? Who are those people who are helping these Eloys sustain themselves? Where are these clothes coming from? Where is all this luxury coming from? All this he was not able to get an answer to. But this is an important question which is presented in the novel, in the early parts of the novel. But as we go ahead in the novel, he comes across this another set of people who are the Morlocks. And Morlocks, as I have said, that this was a subterranean race. What do we mean by subterranean? Subterranean means those who were living below the land. So on the land, on the surface, were the Eloys living a comfortable life, but who were somewhat dim-witted. They were intellectually not sharp. Those living under the land were the Morlocks. Now the Morlocks were this race who he associates with the working class. Okay, now this is where the idea of the social critique also comes into the novel. The Eloys then symbolize the privileged of the society, while the Morlocks symbolize the working class, or so to say, the deprived ones of the society. So now the Morlocks was a race who were living under the surface of the land. It was complete darkness. What they were doing was that they were constantly working. There was huge machines that were there, and that's all that had occupied the life of Morlocks, which is unending toil and unending labor. So that was the completely contrasting race that the time traveler comes across. And in the novel, first half of the novel captures this his observations about the Eloys, and the second half of the novel captures the time traveler's observations about the Morlocks. Okay, now he makes a very, very important statement in the novel, which I will want all of you to take a note of, and I'll very quickly quote this. He says, "Above the ground, you must have the haves, pursuing pleasure, comfort, and beauty, and below the ground, the have-nots, workers getting continually adapted to conditions of their labor." What is happening? Very clearly, H.G. Wells is commenting upon the social stratification that he saw around him in the 19th century as well. Let us not forget, friends, that 19th century was the time when industrialization had appeared in a big way in England. And with industrialization came these two social classes, the class of the capitalist and the social group of the working class, right? the capitalist was the one who had money, had all the resources, and they employed the workers to work in the factories, while the workers then were completely at the mercy of this capitalist class. So what this led to was a very divisive society, a divisive society where there was a lot of difference between these two social groups. In the novel, by means of Eloise and by means of Morlocks, H.G. Wells is commenting upon the capitalist and the working class, and this very unfortunate division, this very unfortunate gap that had existed between these two social groups in 19th century England as well. And therefore, in this quotation which I just now read out, he is using the word haves and the have-nots. So the haves are the Eloise, or the haves are the capitalists, and the have-nots are those who do not have money, who do not have capital, and they are the workers or the working class. So this distinction then is commented upon by means of these two symbolic representations of the races in the novel. Okay, now this then also establishes, friends, what I had mentioned in the early part of my lecture, that how even as this is science fiction, even as this is a text which is steeped in fantasy and imagination, yet it is very much rooted in reality. Okay, so this actually brings us to the idea of how time travel is a fictional device which is deployed by Wells in the novel, and it contributes to the genre of science fiction, right? And how this work then also indicates Wells's political inclination. Now, what do we mean by Wells's political inclination? The fact that he is talking about this difference between two social groups clearly establishes Wells as a person who is in favor of equality, right? So a person who is in favor of equality, in favor of justice, in favor of social justice, clearly has his politics in place, and these points we see very clearly reflected in the depiction of the Eloise and the Morlocks in the novel. Okay, the next point that we make about this novel is that the time machine is actually a social critique. Okay, so as I mentioned, that how the two species in the text then, they stand for Wells's idea of the eventual result of unchecked capitalism. So if capitalism, that phenomena in society, that socio-economic phenomena, if it is unchecked, this is what it will lead to. And what will it lead to? It will lead to the kind of world that we see in the novel The Time Machine. Okay, so therefore we can say that this novel is a classic fable as well as it is a scientific parable. Now, why do we call it a class fable? Class fable very clearly because it is depicting two social groups or two social classes. And why do we call it a scientific parable? Because it is using the idea of time travel, it is using the idea of technology in order to transport us to a world of future, and by means of that make a point about the class struggle in society. Okay. Another thing that we must notice about this novel is that this is the author's dystopic vision, which is a deliberate questioning of the utopian texts of the late 19th century. Now, what is the dystopic vision? The dystopic vision is the fact that he sees that how there are problems in this future world. So dystopia is the exact opposite of utopia. If utopia talks about the ideal conditions, dystopia talks about all that can go wrong in society if human beings are do not reflect on their actions. Okay, so then what we see is that even a lot of different critics have commented on this aspect of the dystopic vision which Time Machine presents, and we have this critic called Veronica Hollinger. So in one of her essays, she makes this very important point, and I quote, She says, the time machine offers itself as a prophetic warning of the decline of the human race, and this devolution is the apparently distinct result of the class divisiveness of Wells's contemporary social situation. So clearly, the fact that there are these two social groups of the Alloys and the Morlocks, and how they have degenerated. We do not see these people as progressing, even as there is advancement around them. But when we look at them as a race, when we look at them as a group of people, there is a lot that is problematic about them, right? And particularly about the Alloys. That's the race which has, for the sake of advancement, it has taken a maximum advantage of nature. And in the novel, H.G. Wells also says that this race has not just taken advantage of nature, but they have also taken advantage of their fellow human beings. And who are these fellow human beings? They are the working class. So therefore, when there is so much of emphasis on development and progress and advancement alone, what is the side effect? What is the negative effect? The fact that how human beings, their individual progress gets stunted, their values become problematic, their behavior towards their so to say peers becomes problematic. So therefore, friends, what we very clearly see in this text is that how science fiction and social commentary seem to coalesce. Okay, so in fact, Hollinger also makes this statement where she says, time travel is a means of reality displacement, unquote. Now, what do we mean by that? She is over here commenting on the fact that how by means of time travel, H.G. Wells takes the people of 19th century into future in order to make them visualize what could be the possible results of their actions if they kept on going in the manner that they are going at the moment, right? So therefore, Veronica says that time travel then becomes a means of reality displacement. So this displaced reality then gives us a view into what is going wrong in the present, and that is where the contribution of science fiction comes in. That is where the contribution of our author H.G. Wells also comes in. We will look at another quotation by Veronica. She says that it functions to introduce the reader into the alternative framework of the science fiction text as an extension or exaggeration of some facet of our experience into another setting. Now over here she is explaining how science fiction then makes human beings reflect on their actions. How does it help? How does it bring this about? By means of exaggeration of one aspect of our experience into a different setting. So with this then there comes a gap between the present and the future, and we are able to then look at ourselves more critically. Yeah. So this text then therefore by means of the genre of science fiction presents a very, very important social critique of the times, and it is actually the critique of capitalism. The next thing that we also see in this is that how it is a novel of dystopia. That's the second point that we have made. The third point that we have made is that how the idea of social commentary and the genre of science fiction, they coalesce in this text, and H.G. Wells then is able to make a very important point about the 19th century reality. Rest, I will leave it to all of you to go read the text, look at the adaptations of this novel, be it in the film form or in the graphic novel, and see the point that H.G. Wells is making and how valuable that point is and how it is relevant still in today's times as well. Thank you.